Hello, and welcome to Understanding Narcissists. Thank you so much for joining me. In this episode, I want to talk about narcissists and rules and bureaucracy and social groups and peer pressure and formalities and penalties and red tape. I guess I could just go on, and you'd be annoyed with me. It's the idea that institutional constraints need to be imposed and sometimes emerge on their own, but are required for us to function as a society. Fine. That's, I don't think that's a highly contentious or inflammable issue. But the narcissist uses it for all that it's worth. It is an excuse to impose things on you that seem legitimate and allow them within those rules, and frankly, outside of those rules, to get you and to inflict emotional harm on you. Now, when I sit here and talk about this, I kind of feel like I'm beating a dead horse. Like, haven't I covered this before? But I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think I've talked about this enough. How narcissists take almost an institutional stance. So what do I mean by that? I know I talked about this with respect to authority, and authority is related to that. You will find that narcissists are very, I don't want to say malleable, but they're certainly flexible given the situation. So are they flexible people? Can they change and grow? I don't think so, not really. But when it comes to manipulating you, they're very clever and innovative. That's why you see narcissists who, all at the same time, regard themselves and portray themselves and believe themselves to be misfits and rebels and outcasts and underdogs who are victimized and abused by the people around them, the world in general. They don't fit in, they're outcasts, they're special, maybe people are jealous of them, and ultimately the narcissist will triumph. Nothing will stop them. Well, at the same time, they'll easily slide right into being the people's hero and leader of the community and someone who just cares about everyone else so much and gets along really well. And given the situation, they will be whoever they have to be in order to, how shall I say this, be narcissistic and continue doing and justifying what they do and not believing it themselves, though they must believe it on some level. That's where institutions, as constraining factors, things they can leverage, things that limit them to some extent. Now, I've been very abstract here for these first 4.5 minutes, and I don't mean to be, but it's the way my mind works, fortunately or unfortunately. And I'm trying to zero in on the specific examples without going into them and not giving some important backdrop so that you know exactly what I'm saying. And I think you will. And it's that given a situation, a narcissist can be all about something and highly institutional and regulated, right? And formal. And for the status quo, to a fault, and impose it on you and make you feel bad and shame you for not meeting certain standards or requirements and being concerned about something. They'll do that. They'll be the authority. and the regulator or whatever. A parent. They pretend to be a parent. And they will beat that drum to absolutely no end. Well, at the same time, usually when those rules are imposed upon them or limit their ability to act narcissistic in a way, here's the mega contradiction, then it's a problem and it's an issue, and they take up arms and their image completely changes. Do all narcissists have both? I don't know. I find that most do. They like to be both. They like to be the authority and they like to be the rebel who is battling the authority. Why is this so important? Well, I've never seen anyone else do this in the same way and have no problem with it. I've never seen something so inconsistent in my life. And even though to look at it might even seem humorous at times, I think it's such a sign of emotional dysfunction. You know, when they do it seriously, because they take it seriously and they take themselves extremely seriously. It's a serious matter. And I don't want you to fall victim to, as I have and sometimes do, the sort of browbeating and formal abuse that takes place when a narcissist takes the role of authority, like somehow they represent the greater whole in the society, and they're somehow officials, and they know their stuff, and you should listen to them. They're professionals. They're experts. They follow all the rules, whatever those rules may be, because they're so convincing. You will convince yourself that they're right. And then they will turn around and those rules will disappear. Now, obviously, I won't say obviously, but it'll be apparent to you that they don't follow their own rules all the time. And there's definitely a, what is seen and what is actually done, what they say and what they actually do are different things. And so if nobody's there to hold them accountable, in trying to keep a consistency between what they say and what they do, right? Or even take notice of it, then they'll do something entirely different. And this is so critical, I think, as a breaking point to getting narcissists out of your life and not being vulnerable to them. There's the emotional side to things that you have to develop. But then you have to really see the reality that is going on. Because the reality is very hard to accept because they're very convincing. They're very, very convincing. It is so easy to believe that they are these fantastic beings and they actually meet all the standards that they supposedly do, that they claim they do. All ostensible. You don't really know. And so you can't be critical, and this is no fault of your own. It's very hard to be critical of what they do and what they don't do because of the expectations they set, how they're able to keep your wandering eyes, your critical perception from meeting them and catching them. You almost become blind to it, blind to how imperfect they are, because they're able to define everything in your mind and your expectations. It's like there's a built-in bias. Because you believe something, that is what you're going to see. And even when you see them act out of character or something is wrong, and it would be a severe contradiction, severe enough to where you really start to question this person's sanity, the sanity of the narcissist, you turn away and don't see it because of this sort of mock institution that they've constructed around you. It's a huge problem. It's a part of the illusion. At the same time, you do get invested in it to where you don't want to see things. That's probably the most dangerous thing, because your own identity and maybe sanctity and comfort is wrapped up in them being whatever they're supposed to be, but they're not. Those are, I don't want to steal any jargon from anyone else, but those are trigger points. Those are catalysts. Those are holes in their explanation. And at some point, you're going to find them and you're going to see them. And it's a question of not, if you're going to, but when you're going to, and how you handle it. And that's something that I feel like is kind of my job, where I want you to be in a position to be able to break apart that part of the illusion. This invisible, almost invisible cage that they have you in. That's supposed to be this noble cause or institution or set of rules or some ideal that you're both often pursuing together. That's not something that is easily broken. I can't do it myself. You don't, just in closing, it's worth noting that you can't break these apart for someone else. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you don't beat narcissism with a sort of brute force method. There's a lot of subtlety involved. That subtlety can involve emotional maturity and standing up to them emotionally. And that can be a sort of forward and overt method of defending yourself and getting out of it, getting out of the mindset and the trappings that you're in, that they've made and customized for you. They do this with you in mind, so you will fall victim to it. You have to give people just the idea, so that when the perception breaks, the holes in the illusion, they will be prepared to have an emotional breakthrough of a sort, so that they're not going to be stuck in it anymore. You have to do that yourself. You can't help people in a direct way with narcissism. It has to be a shared experience, but they have to figure it out for themselves. Just like how you often fall into it, not believing or really even conceiving that you're being fooled, right? You think this is the person, they're not trying to fool you, therefore this is the way it is, this is your perception, and you're getting out of it. People need to fall in their own pattern in order to break free of it, in order to figure it out. And so you have to give them the tools to be able to do so. But how they're going to do it, it can be remarkably different. There's still the stages, but how it actually unfolds, everybody's kind of got a different story about how they got away from a narcissist or realized what was going on, I find. There's numerous differences, even if the process is very similar. But it never happened. It didn't happen when they believed the narcissist and someone like me came along and said, this person's a narcissist. That never works. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. There has to be a breaking point to where they're curious. Then everything unravels, like yarn, like a piece of thread. You're just pulling the thread. And that's part of that's going to be the rule book that a narcissist throws on you and how everything is supposed to work and change. They need to confine your behavior through seemingly legitimate means, right? I suppose I mean constrained behavior, but they also confine it. They also isolate you. They want to limit you in every possible way without you being suspicious. But because it's wrong, you are going to be suspicious at some point. And you need to be ready. You can't know to be ready when the whole thing breaks apart. but there's always that bit of doubt in you and concern, and it's how you handle it. You're never at ease with a narcissist. It's just a question of when that doubt and concern erupts out and you start following it. Anyway, I've gone on too long. I hope this video is relevant. I hope you like it. Like it if you do. Share it with somebody you think might benefit from it. And I'm very curious about what seemingly normal and acceptable and reasonable rules narcissists have imposed on you. I want to know all about that because I'm very, very curious at the variations and what the differences might be with narcissists I've known and come across. The legitimacy and the official nature of their behavior. And what I mean by that is all the stuff, they act like everyone else is doing it and it's expected of you, and if you don't do it, you're horrible. That's what I mean by institution and rules. It's not necessarily something to say that those things are bad. It's just the way the narcissist uses them and really fabricates them is so bad. And I want to know what you've seen and experienced and what other people have experienced, what you've observed and what you think about in that regard, because I do want to know kind of more tricks in the playbook, because I just think there's a lot of room in this area about how they do it. They're very crafty and they're very innovative when it comes to controlling people. So tell me all about that, what you're willing to share and share with other people. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next episode. I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.